rehabilitation for the Karzai government, and he told me that what in the global south is known as the neoliberal model is being imposed with a vengeance on Afghanistan. This is an agricultural society where farmers need to be able to sell their wares, their fruits, their vegetables, and the U.S. government, along with its allies, is insisting that protective tariffs not be imposed by the Afghan government to protect and sustain its own capacity to grow food.
And Norman Solomon, you're the co-founder of Fairness and Accuracy in Reporting. You've been a longtime analyst of the U.S. media, the corporate media in this country. And I wanted to ask you about a quote that Thomas Friedman, the New York Times columnist, he had a column just a few days ago in the paper. This is some of what he wrote. He said, "Iraqis and Afghans have one big thing in common. They are like battered children. And battered children often grow up to be battering adults. That is, to survive under Saddam in Iraq, or to survive the Russian occupation and the Taliban years in Kabul, was to survive terrifying levels of brutality, and it made many people brutal and corrupt to get by." That's Thomas Friedman. Can you respond to that? And also this issue of media coverage overall.
Yeah, well, Thomas Friedman in the column on last Sunday is a good example, gives paternalism a bad name. Here is somebody who's been advocating for U.S. military intervention and occupation who every 6 months would say, for years on end in his column, that the U.S. had 6 months to get it right, quote unquote, in Iraq, and then he would just simply rewind the tape, and this went on for years at a time. Now he's cheerleading for escalation of the U.S. war in Afghanistan. The reality is that it's easy enough to do if you buy into all the assumptions that have helped to escalate this war for years. I would say that the news media in general are way out of step with the public of the United States. There's a CNN poll released just hours ago showing a 20-point gap between approval and disapproval of this war in Afghanistan, with close to 60% of the American public now opposed to this war. And that's a real opportunity for progressive people who want peace and justice rather than escalation and militarism to deepen the opposition so that it opposes by any name the so-called war on terror and raises fundamental questions about U.S. foreign policy and priorities.
Finally, Norman Solomon, you were an Obama delegate. Are you disappointed now?
Well, you know, I haven't met a progressive yet who would just as soon have John McCain as president. That said, we always choose from the choices that we're facing at a particular time. And while, as I said a year ago, the best way not to become disillusioned is to not have illusions in the first place, my somewhat low expectations from President Obama have not been met. This guy has rushed into the arms of what Eisenhower called the military-industrial complex. And I would say that whether it's Obama or even the voices such as now being heard from Capitol Hill from some Democrats like Nancy Pelosi, we depend on them for a sane foreign policy at our peril and the peril of people in Afghanistan and elsewhere. We're going to have to do it from the grassroots. That's always been the case. The warfare state perpetuates itself. We need to pursue a different vision, and we will be able to do that effectively if we stick to the grassroots work and do the organizing effectively.
Medea Benjamin, speaking of organizing, you're a longtime peace activist, co-founder of Code Pink, speaking to us from the Code Pink House in Washington via Democracy Now! Video stream. Talk about the petition that you're delivering to Congress.
Well, this is to mark the anniversary of that vote in Congress that authorized the use of force in Afghanistan. And it's a petition that's being spread by many groups throughout the United States, the anti-war community, members of the religious community, and its appeal to the White House, to Congress, to set a timetable for the withdrawal of troops. We feel, as Norman does, that this is the time for action. President Obama is on the wrong path. He's already authorized 21,000 troops. He may be about to call for another 20,000 troops. If your listeners, Amy, out there, don't want to see decades more of U.S. presence in Afghanistan, this is the time to stop it in its tracks. This is the time to join us signing the petition. You can see it online at codepinkalert.org. And the Media Week we are launching this week to tell people to contact their letters, write letters to the editor, to call into the radio shows, to join us when we deliver our petitions to Congress on Thursday, to be visible this week, and to lead up to a month of actions in October when we mark the anniversary of the invasion itself.
And let us ask you the same question. You've actually taken up residence in Washington, D.C. from the Bay Area, from San Francisco, during the Obama administration. The kind of activism you see that's needed right now.
I say come to Washington, whoever can. We just heard a little clip of Nancy Pelosi talking about September 24th being a very important date when McChrystal will brief Congress. We should be there flooding the halls of Congress. It's a little lonely here, Amy. The anti-war movement is way too quiet. We should be flooding the halls of Congress every day now. This month and the next month are absolutely critical months. We have to be seen. We have to be heard. So I would say that the most important thing is to reactivate the networks that were so active during the Bush years, to force Obama to do the right thing, which is to set an exit strategy and bring our troops home.
Well, Medea Benjamin, I want to thank you very much for being with us, founder of Code Pink, the group delivering a petition to Congress calling for a U.S. troop withdrawal from Afghanistan. The petition is called Take Action Against the War. This is Democracy Now! When we come back, we look at the torture memos, rationalizing the unthinkable, with attorney David Cole. Stay with us.
Mr. Speaker, members, I rise today really with a very heavy heart. One that is filled with sorrow for the families and the loved ones who were killed and injured this week. September 11th changed the world. This unspeakable act forced me, however, to rely on my moral compass, my conscience, and my God for direction. Military action will not prevent further acts of international terrorism against the United States. Some of us must say, let's step back for a moment. Let's just pause just for a minute and think through the implications of our actions today so that this does not spiral out of control. Spiral out of control.
This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. That video produced by Code Pink, featuring the words of Democratic Congressmember Barbara Lee, the only lawmaker in either chamber of Congress to vote against the resolution authorizing the use of force in the so-called war on terror. This Friday marks the 8 years since that vote was taken.